communities to help identify and work with us towards finding solutions. That includes first service providers, and much of what we are doing in this legislation, Mr. Speaker, is listening to the suggestions that those people have made on the ground to us in terms of dealing with this crisis.
There will be 6 minutes and 19 seconds remaining following question period for questions and comments. Statements by members. Déclaration des députés.
The Honourable Member for Dorval, Lachine-LaSalle. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to wish a very happy anniversary to the city of Lachine. 350 years ago, France gave the domain of Saint-Sulpice to the explorer Robert Cavelier de la Salle. Over the centuries, this area became the third largest parish on the island of Montreal. It became the starting point of the road leading north for the fur trade, and it became a literal passage for Montreal's industry when the Lachine Canal was built.
If you're planning to come and visit Montreal to celebrate our 375th anniversary, be sure to stop by Lachine. All summer long, there will be plenty of activities designed to mark our sesquicentennial, celebrate our past, and look towards our future. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Saskatoon University.
Yesterday, like millions of dads around the world, I grabbed my toddler, handed her a gift and a card, and told them to give her to her mummy for Mother's Day. She happily claimed credit for the gift and received her mother's hug in response. For at least one day each year, mothers are the center of attention. But it is a good question to ask. What is the value of mothers in society? For some, being just a mother is unimportant. It does not have the glamour or prestige of others' roles. It is argued that to replace the role of a mother, it just takes someone, anyone who cares. But the history of society and our own personal experiences argue for a different conclusion. Mothers provide the foundational education, nurturing, and love, which all people need. They are unique, different, and special, and no one should be denied a mother. The special role of motherhood should not be denied by our governments or by our societies. So to my mother, my wife, the mom of my little one, and to mothers all across Canada, happy Mother's Day.
The Honourable Member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honour former PEI, MLA and Cabinet Minister Leon Bagnall, who passed away April 30th. Mrs. Bagnall served in the PEI legislature for 14 years. Elected in 1979, she was the first progressive Conservative woman appointed to Cabinet on PEI, as Education Minister and Minister responsible for the status of women. Leon served as interim party leader for the PEI Progressive Conservative Party, the first woman to lead an opposition party in Canada. Mrs. Bagnall was named to the Order of Canada in 1994 and honoured the Order of PEI in 2005. A former teacher, farmer, and mother of 5, she is remembered as a community leader and political pioneer. Whether it was family, church, community, or politics, Leon was always modest and unassuming. As a former Lieutenant Governor stated, quote, Bagnall was simply a wonderful person, end quote. And that she was, Mr. Speaker. We extend our condolences to her family and our thanks for her service.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Meeting these past few weeks with Nanaimo Ladysmith groups like Haven Society, Nanaimo Family Life Association, and community centres for Indigenous peoples, they have one worry in common: a shortage of reliable, stable funding to keep the lights on. These groups make sure women fleeing violence have a safe place to go. They get food delivered to seniors, and they make sure Indigenous youth have safe cultural space. Community groups need operational funding, not short-term grants that are too complex to apply for and that organizations might not get. One community leader said, quote, the Liberals are saving money off the backs of the vulnerable, end quote. I agree, and it needs to change. Let's honour and fund our frontline community organizations, fund their operations to honour their work.
The Honourable Member for Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to rise in the House as the unprecedented floodwaters in my riding of Vaudreuil-Soulanges and all across Canada are beginning to recede. Many houses were destroyed, and I am profoundly touched by the thousands of citizens who volunteered to help their community in need.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say thank you to all of those who volunteered to help. They are our local heroes, and today they deserve recognition in this House. I'd also like to thank the Prime Minister, who visited Terrasses-Vaudreuil during the worst of the flooding and who was able to see our community come together like never before to help those who needed it most. But, Mr. Speaker, we must now focus on the immense cleanup effort that is to come. And with that in mind, I ask all members of our community of Vaudreuil-Soulanges to regularly check my updates and those of their municipalities in the coming days for updates on where help is needed most. Monsieur le Président, je suis fier.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the extraordinary citizens who worked so hard. I will be honored to work with them as we help our community rebuild. Thank you.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to thank the Orangeville Food Bank and its 70-plus volunteers for 25 years of service to our community. Founded in 1992, the Orangeville Food Bank serves upwards of 500 people a month. Its founders remain a part of the volunteer team to this day. This terrific organization operates out of a 3,600-square-foot facility that allows it to share with other local organizations, such as Choices Youth Shelter, Family Transition Place, the Lighthouse, and the Salvation Army. In 2016, the Orangeville Food Bank underwent major renovations that included the installation of a walk-in fridge and freezer, which now allows them to accept donations of perishable goods. I want to thank particularly the founders Nancy Rampley and Eleanor Elston, Jack and Yvonne McEwen, as well as the late June Daly for their tireless dedication. The residents of Dufferin-Caledon are grateful for their outstanding contribution to our community. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Centre.
Mr. Speaker, BC Simon Fraser University is one of Canada's top innovators. They host Venture Labs, which is BC's largest business accelerator. Their unique industry partnership office gives students the tools they need to commercialize their ideas and drive economic growth. Entrepreneurship is integrated into most programs. Today, some SFU students are in Ottawa to discuss their vision for Vancouver's own innovation supercluster, taking the dreams of today to create the reality of tomorrow and solidifying Canada's position in the global innovation race. In Budget 2017, our government demonstrated it is firmly on their side.
The honourable member for Louis-Hébert.
The bank has released its report entitled Drug-Resistant Infections, a Threat to Our Economic Future. I'm proud to say that our government takes the issue of antimicrobial resistance, or AMR, seriously and has helped support the development of this report. The report notes that AMR is a complex issue that impacts health, agriculture, trade and the environment, and outlines the possible economic and development consequences of the continued global spread of antimicrobial resistance. The report indicates that it's possible to avoid these outcomes by engaging in vigorous antimicrobial resistance containment in the human health, the veterinary health, and the agriculture sectors. The Government of Canada has been recognized internationally for its One Health approach to address antimicrobial resistance across sectors. And last November, our government announced $9 million contribution to the World Health Organization to support the implementation of a global action plan on AMR. We will continue to work with the provinces and territories and key partners internationally to address AMR here in Canada and across the world. Thank you.
Honourable member for Stormont, Dundas, South Glengarry.
Mr. Speaker, commemorative medals are a tradition in Canada. This honour recognizes Canadians who have made a difference in their communities. Canada has issued commemorative medals at important anniversaries in the past. Unfortunately, the Liberal government has decided to eliminate this tradition despite public enthusiasm for its contribution. Therefore, to mark the 150th anniversary of Confederation, I am honoured to announce the creation of the Stormont Dundas South Glengarry Service Award. This award, a commemoration medal, will honour and recognise residents in SD and SG who have made outstanding contributions to our community. We all know these everyday heroes, teachers, first responders, community volunteers, local Little League coaches, and so on. Please consider nominating them for this award. Nominations will be reviewed by an independent volunteer panel, and the number of recipients will be limited to 150 in recognition of Canada's 150th anniversary. To learn more about this award, I would encourage residents to visit my website. Thank you, Mr.
Honourable Member for Labrador.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I'm wearing seal in honor of National Seal Day. The bill has just passed in the House of Commons and is expected to receive royal assent shortly, making this an annual celebration. Inuit and coastal communities of Atlantic Canada and Quebec have relied on the land and the sea for their food security and their clothing for millennia and continue to do so today. Seal Day is about honoring the historical and modern contributions that seal represents, an integral cultural, economic, and sustainable industry for thousands of people in our country. So please join us today as we join the Speaker to sample gourmet seal canopy, discover seal skin fashion, and learn more about the industry and the products that are made from seal oil, skin, and meats, and the Indigenous culture that surrounds it. And I also invite you to join the seal industry tomorrow evening for a dinner at the National Arts Centre.
The Honourable Member for Toronto-Danforth.
This year, our first female Member of Parliament, Agnes McPhail, will be featured on the commemorative Canada 150 $10 bill. Agnes McPhail was elected in 1921, and she was the only woman in this place until 1935 when she was joined by Martha Black. She was a feminist, an advocate for social justice, and she was a groundbreaker who paved the way for the 92 women who take their seats in this place. She once said, "I do not want to be an angel of any home. I want for myself what I want for other women, absolute equality. After that is secured, then men and women can take turns being angels." And perhaps a hint to her success lies in this quote of hers: "Never apologize, never explain, just get the thing done and let them howl." I rise today to celebrate her role in our history as a famous East Yorker and to announce the new East York Hall of Fame is open for nominations. Make your nominations now.
The Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, this week we mark 8 years since the end of Sri Lanka's civil war. During that war, Canada rightly listed the Tamil Tigers as a terrorist organization. But unfortunately, the fight against terrorism was and continues to be used by Sri Lanka's government as a basis on which to violate the fundamental human rights of the Tamil community. Estimates are that over 40,000 Tamil civilians were killed during the final phase of the civil war, as the government shelled civilians, no fire zones, and hospitals. Subsequently, IDPs face torture, and the use of torture in Sri Lanka remains a concern. Progress in the search for justice and reconciliation is between slow and non-existent. Independent judicial mechanisms to investigate crimes committed by both sides were promised but never materialized. I was proud of the leadership showed by Prime Minister Stephen Harper when he announced that Canada would boycott the 2013 Commonwealth Summit in Sri Lanka over human rights abuses. This government must maintain and increase that pressure. This week, we mourn those who lost their lives and renew our calls for justice and accountability.
L'Honorable Député.
Honourable Member for Ville-Marie, le Sud-Ouest Île des Sœurs. On May 17th, 375 years ago, the village of Hochelaga was established. Today we're celebrating the anniversary of the city in which I grew up and the city which I continue to discover every day.
For coexistence where communities hailing from far and wide live together in mutual respect, welcoming people who need a new home, like those escaping the Irish Great Famine, the atrocities of the Holocaust, the Vietnam War, and more recently, the Syrian Civil War.
Montreal is known for its multiculturalism, including its cuisine. It's as famous for its smoked meat as it is for its piri-piri chicken or its poutine. Montreal's flag bears the French fleur de lis, the English rose, the Scottish thistle, and the Irish shamrock. For its 375th anniversary, the city plans to add an Aboriginal symbol, a laudable idea.
75th birthday, the future is bright. Bravo.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquillonger. Mr. Speaker, for several weeks, the citizens of Berthier-Maskinongé have been facing flooding, which will inevitably cause significant damage and have major long-term consequences. However, I'd like to take some time today to mention the many initiatives set up to help those affected in my riding of Berthier-Maskinongé. Solidarity and cooperation have been evident in this difficult period in my riding and all across Quebec. For example, there's the group SOS Inondation Mauricie, which now has over 100 volunteers. And there's the North Shore Poultry Farmers Association that bought water bottles and distributed them to volunteers. Many restaurants have also chipped in by giving volunteers hot drinks and food. Thank you so much. To conclude, even as the waters recede, I'm convinced that this show of solidarity will continue. Rest assured that my team and myself will be with you on the ground. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
They are now hearing. So I'd ask the member for Parry Sound, Muskoka, if he doesn't mind, to begin again.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise in the House today to mark the passing of the Honourable Ron Atke. Sadly, he died this past Friday. Ron Atke was first elected to the House of Commons for the Toronto riding of St. Paul's in the 1972 election as a Progressive Conservative. After being defeated in 1974, he was re-elected in 1979 as part of the Joe Clark minority government and was appointed Minister for Employment and Immigration. Under his and the Honourable Flora MacDonald's ministerial leadership, with the backing of the Prime Minister, Mr. Atke was instrumental in large numbers of Vietnamese refugees, then known as the Boat People, being admitted to Canada. After accomplishing this great political achievement, Mr. Atke was defeated in the 1980 election, but was returned to the practice of law, but also from 1984 to 1989, he served as chairman of the Security Intelligence Review Committee. I knew Ron for over 35 years. I know I speak for many friends and colleagues of Mr. Atke's in this House when I say how thankful we are for his many years of dedicated service to Canada. Our thoughts and prayers go out to his family, including wife Marie and children Aaron Tate, Matthew Atke, and Jennifer Price. He will be greatly missed.
The Honourable Member for Ottawa-Vanier. Mr. Speaker, I'm thrilled to speak today to pay tribute to all the mothers who are working so hard in Ottawa-Vanier and across the country.
Today was Mother's Day, a day to pause and acknowledge the critically important role mothers play in our lives.
I also want to mention that May 15th is the International Day of Families.
As this government continues to invest in rights of women and girls across the globe, I want to acknowledge the important work Canadian organizations play in helping supporting families across the globe with investments in children's education, safe, clean drinking water, and sanitation, and unwavering support of reproductive health funding.
Mr. Speaker, I ask all members of this House to join me in celebrating Mother's Day, as well as the International Day of Families. Thank you.
Questions orales, oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal plan to transform the defense policy is taking too much time, and it leads to uncertainty for our national safety and our soldiers. We've just learned that the Trump administration is going to see the new defense policy before Canadians see it. Or worse yet, even before soldiers. When will we be able to discuss the defense plans with President Trump before? Why is he talking with President Trump before discussing it with the Canadian soldiers?
Mr. Speaker, the defense policy was done by and for Canadians, and we consulted them extensively. And that is why we want to release our new defense policy to them first. All along our defense policy review, we had a range of discussions with our allies, including the U.S. We learned a lot from them, particularly from those who engaged in the same reviews process in the most recent years. Our defense policy, Mr. Speaker, will be costed and fully funded. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I have a hard time believing that this defense minister actually designed and devised this defense policy himself. I know the Chamber has not seen this, members of Parliament have not seen it, and the military has not seen it. And now the Prime Minister is meeting in secret with the Americans to get their okay. They know our defense plans before Canadians know them. Why do Washington insiders get privileged access to Canadian defense policies before the Canadian public does and before the Canadian military does?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians across Canada, as well as members of Parliament, were involved with the consultations all across Canada, Mr. Speaker. We have spoken with our allies. We've spoken with experts on this, Mr. Speaker, done a thorough process that is fully costed and also that is fully funded, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, Wynn's Law could have literally saved the life of Constable Wynn. When an accused criminal is already facing over 12 other charges and a judge releases him on bail, we have a problem. The system failed and we need to fix it. This is a common sense fix. When will the Prime Minister start supporting Wynn's Law and start putting the safety of Canadians first?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to say again that we have the deepest sympathies for Ms. McGuinness Wynn and her family of the constable. We are working diligently in terms of doing an overview of the criminal justice system, including bail reform. That is why when I met with the provinces and territories, we agreed that one of the priorities in terms of how we move forward in criminal justice is to actually concretely and collaboratively look at bail reform. We agree with the principle of Wynn's Law, or the bill, in terms of ensuring that all relevant information is available at bail hearings.
Chef de l'Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, once again, the Prime Minister is putting the needs of criminals and lawyers ahead of the needs of victims. But gutting Wynn's Law is a new low. Wynn's Law is not controversial. It's a common-sense, simple answer to a real loophole in our system. If an accused wants to be released at a bail hearing, a judge should know whether or not this individual has a history of being dangerous to Canadians. So my question to the Prime Minister is this: why won't he start standing up for victims instead of criminals?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, we're undertaking a comprehensive review of the criminal justice system, including bail reform. That is why when I met with my colleagues in the provinces and territories, we talked about what we could do to increase the confidence in the criminal justice system, protecting victims and increasing public safety. We are moving forward collaboratively. When the province of Alberta, after the unfortunate and tragic death of Constable Wynn, put together a report, the report did not, when it came back, provide recommendations that are contained within Bill C-217.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to announce that my bill to protect victims of sexual assault passed a committee with all party support, and it was reported. Reported back to the House by the member from Sarnia-Lambton. This is about building confidence in our justice system so more victims of sexual assault feel comfortable reporting and seeking justice. This is something we can all do together to show victims that we believe them. So will the Prime Minister join me and the Leader of the NDP and fast-track this bill to the Senate?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my honourable colleague across the way for putting forward the private member's bill. That will indeed improve training for lawyers in terms of sexual assault. I was very pleased to see the results of committee, wherein it was unanimous to put forward 3 amendments to the current private member's bill, including expanding the sexual context in terms of training. I look forward to supporting this private member's bill as it proceeds through the House.
The Honourable Member for Beloeil-Chambly.
Président, le ministre a bien beau nous répéter que les risques associés avec la banque d'infrastructure seront assumés par les investisseurs. plutôt que les contribuables. Mais j'en doute fortement. Les grandes sociétés d'investissement sont...
Excusez-moi. Apparemment, il y a un problème avec l'interprétation. Est-ce que ça fonctionne?
Test 1, 2. Is it working? I ask the member for Belleuil-Chambly to restart.
It'll be better the second time around. The minister can keep telling us that the risks associated with the infrastructure bank, that the costs will be taken on by investors and not taxpayers, but it's really hard to believe. Big investment companies are there for the profits to be made. With this bank, Canadians are the ones who are going to pay the price for new tolls and new service fees. How is spending $35 billion for tolls and service fees to benefit the private sector an advantage for taxpayers?
Structure and communities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we are proud to put forward a very ambitious plan to build and rebuild Canadian infrastructure to grow our economy, create jobs for the middle class. And we're very proud that Infrastructure Bank will allow us to build more infrastructure that our communities need, as well as free up government resources so we can build more social housing, we can build more shelters, we can build more recreational and cultural facilities to help those who struggle each and every day to be part of the middle class. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
The Liberals aren't even answering the basic questions about their infrastructure bank. It's almost as if they're hiding the details from Canadians. I wonder why. Asked several times, what happens if a private corporation pulls out of a project? Liberals refuse to answer. The infrastructure bank would impose user fees on Canadians to provide profits for corporations. But what if that's not enough for them? What would they be able to pull out of the project? And who would be left on the hook? Can the Liberals answer questions?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Canadian pension funds like CPPIB or OMERS or teachers or EMCO or the Caisse de dépôt invest billions of dollars helping build infrastructure in other countries. They have been doing that for Australia, they've been doing it for Latin America. So what is wrong, Mr. Speaker, that if our own pension funds invest in our own infrastructure to create jobs in our own community to help grow our own middle class so people have opportunities? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for North Island Powell River.
Simple questions deserve simple answers. So much for respecting question period. Recently, we have seen several reports of racial profiling at the U.S. border. Another report today where a family was told not to cross the border in Vermont. Instead of securing guarantees for Canadians at the border, the Public Safety Minister has suggested that Canadians themselves might be to blame. What's it going to take for the Liberals to stand up and demand guarantees that Canadians be treated fairly at the U.S. border?
Well, Minister of Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, everyone crossing the border has the right to be treated fairly and respectfully with consistent professional treatment. If the standards fall below that, in the hands of an American border officer, that failure should in fact be reported, so there is a statistical record of the failure. But I would point out that so far this year, the numbers are actually going down, not up.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly.
Help someone who's being dehumanized at the border because of the color of their skin or their religious beliefs.
Mr. Speaker, the minister keeps repeating that the number of people being turned back at the American border is decreasing. But this morning in La Presse, we learned that a family was turned back and they were told in the American consulate in Montreal that there were certain border crossings where there's profiling. Mr. Speaker, the minister said that he obtained guarantees when he met the Secretary Kelly a few weeks ago here in Ottawa. What are these guarantees worth? Is he finally going to stand up and really get results for Canadians at the border?
Public safety.
Mr. Speaker, as I mentioned, I have already raised this issue with the United States. If there are specific instances that individual travelers want to bring to my attention and want pursued with the American administration, I invite them to do that, and we will follow up.
Honourable Member for South Surrey White Rock.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Taxpayers are paying twice for the Liberals' infrastructure bank. $35 billion to set it up, tolls and user fees so private investors get their 7 to 12% profit, and the minister told CBC News that taxpayers will not be on the hook for the infrastructure bank risks. But the legislation clearly states that the minister can make a loan or provide a loan guarantee. So clearly, we're dealing with Liberal math, where loan guarantees have no risk and budgets balance themselves. So why won't the minister just admit that taxpayers will be on the hook for defaulted loans?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Infrastructure Bank will allow us to build more infrastructure in partnership with our municipal sector, in partnership with the provincial sector. So there will be different layers of accountability and due diligence done on every step of the way when we engage with infrastructure bank or with private sector. Mr. Speaker, municipalities have struggled for a long time to be properly funded by the previous government, and we are there to support them, whether we do that through our traditional funding models, which is billions and billions of dollars, or we allow the infrastructure bank to build more infrastructure for our Canadian community.
The Honourable Member for South Surrey.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and for that non-answer. The Liberals are giving private investors loan guarantees through the Infrastructure Bank, even against their own internal report, which advised closer study to ensure taxpayers are protected. But a loan guarantee means that Canadian taxpayers will be left to pay the bill and assume all of the risk. Mr. Speaker, will the minister admit that taxpayers will actually be on the hook for the infrastructure bank risks?
The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the vast majority of the infrastructure that our government support to build is owned by the provincial and municipal sector and the territorial sector. What our goal is to make sure that we are leveraging private capital to build more infrastructure that our Canadian communities need. And private sector has been playing a prominent role in building infrastructure in our country for decades and for centuries. We want to take it to the next level where we can leverage that private investment to build more infrastructure that our Canadian communities deserve and need.
Great idea.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Order. Mr. Speaker, according to an internal report presented by KPMG to the Trudeau government, it is recommended that an in-depth study of the infrastructure bank be done before it is set up. Why? Because there are concerns that the bank will duplicate the work of provinces and municipalities, delay projects with more bureaucracy, and become a disastrous embarrassment for the government. With all of these warnings, why is the minister insisting on going in headfirst? What does he have to hide?
Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, we have done extensive amount of consultation for the last whole year, engaging with the municipalities, with the provinces, with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, with labour organizations, with the trade councils, with the IMF, with the World Bank, with all sort of stakeholders that are interested in infrastructure. We will continue to engage with them as we set up the bank and as we hire the CEO and put the board of directors in place. Our goal is to make sure we're protecting the public interest, at the same time building more infrastructure that our Canadian communities deserve.
The Honourable Member for Richmond Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, the only certainty we have is that we are going straight into a wall. This same KPMG internal report implies that citizens may end up paying for that bank's infrastructure. It would seem that the Liberals are hiding something. If the minister wants to reassure Canadians that they will not simply be had by their Liberal billionaire friends, can he commit in this House that under no circumstance will citizens have to pay more in tolls, taxes, or tariffs for these infrastructure bank projects?
Mr. Speaker, we are very proud that the Infrastructure Bank will actually report to this House through the Parliament, through the regular operational plans that will be tabled in this House. The members can see that. and as well as the extensive consultation that we have done with our stakeholders and our partners that are broadly supportive of our infrastructure plan because they understand that their communities have been struggling for a decade, that their communities need more affordable housing, they need more recreational centers, they need more public transit, and they need to make sure that we do it in a way that we free up public resources.
The honourable member for Carleton.
The budget bill empowers the finance minister to lend investors tens of billions of tax dollars to build infrastructure. I asked him 10 times in committee today, who will repay taxpayers if those builders go bankrupt? 10 times he refused to answer. If the minister who is responsible for making these risky taxpayer-funded loans doesn't know how they will be repaid, who does?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, under the previous government, our communities have suffered greatly, that the infrastructure they need have...
Order. We need to hear the answer. The Honourable Minister of Infrastructure has the floor.
I want to hear it.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me tell the House what the PPP Canada has to say, or the Council of Public-Private Partnership has to say about the Infrastructure Bank. The Council says that Council is optimistic that the bank will play a significant role in attracting more private capital while growing the pipeline of P3 projects across Canada. This is from the CEO of Council of the Public-Private Partnerships, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Carleton.
When Concrete USL went bankrupt building a bridge in South Ottawa, taxpayers had no extra cost. That's because the builder was forced to hire a private sector guarantor to finish the job. Thank God there was no infrastructure bank at the time, because it would have offered investors a government loan guarantee, putting taxpayers on the hook. Why is the government taking billions of dollars of risk off the shoulders of wealthy billionaires and putting it onto the backs of Canadian taxpayers?
Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, we will always make sure that we protect the public interest, that we protect the Canadian taxpayers' interest. Our goal is to mobilize private capital so we can build more infrastructure that the Canadian communities deserve. The infrastructure that Harper government denied for a decade. You ask to any big city mayor, you ask any small city mayor, they will tell you that for the last decade they have seen very little investment, and our goal is to build the infrastructure that our Canadian communities deserve and they need.
Order. The honourable member for Vancouver East.
The Liberals promise to overhaul how asylum claims are processed is on hold indefinitely. The Prime Minister's welcome to Canada rhetoric is just a slogan. There's been no action on designated country of origin, no action on giving the IRB the resources they desperately need, and 1,000 cases are added to the huge backlog every month. The integrity of the entire system is under threat. Is the government blind to this, or are they just happy to break yet another promise?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to inform the member opposite that we've been lauded globally as having a really good model for a refugee system that is generous, compassionate and efficient. We've been working closely with stakeholders to make sure that we hear their concerns with respect to even having more efficiencies in the IRB. We've been working closely with the IRB to make sure that their new efficiency measures are taking place, and we support them. And we consult continuously with stakeholders, including on the designated countries of origin, to make sure that refugee protection remains at the heart of our asylum policy.
The honourable member for Saint-Hyacinthe-Bagotte. It would seem that the government has still not understood just how urgent the situation is. Mr. Speaker, the internal efficiency of the Immigration and Refugee Board is just not enough to manage the backlog that is built up. Nearly 24,000 case files. The question is simple, Mr. Speaker. Will the government announce additional funding to manage this backlog, which has built up to unacceptable levels for 24,000 people? The Honourable Minister for Immigration.
In terms of the member opposite with respect to refugee backlogs, what I will say is that we've had fluctuations in the system with respect to asylum seekers. Some years we've had higher numbers than even this year. In previous years, they've been followed with lower numbers. Our system is geared to deal with those fluctuations, but we work very closely with the IRB, which is an independent quasi-judicial body, to make sure that the efficiencies that they've been putting in place to address some of the issues around the delays that we support, and we look for more ways to make sure that they work even harder.
The member for Beauport-Côte-de-Beaupré, Île-d'Orléans, Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, the partisan appointment made by the government across the way to fill the position of Official Languages Commissioner is just business as usual. Getting a senior official's position after giving no less than $5,000 to the Liberal Party and working at Queen's Park in the same place as the thinker behind the Liberal agenda, that's just back-scratching. Does that mean that if one is not a friend of the Liberal Party and does not give to Liberal coffers, that there's no chance of being appointed to a high-level position with this government? The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage. Official language is at the heart of our priority as a government and at the heart of our identity as Canadians, and these are priorities, as I've just indicated. When it comes to appointments, our government has firmly committed to make sure that appointment processes are rigorous, open, and based on merit in order to find the best possible candidate. The role of the Official Languages Commissioner is important. We value it. An announcement will be made shortly.
Red Deer Lacombe.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is set to appoint a former Ontario Liberal Cabinet Minister as the new Commissioner of Official Languages. Now, what's next, Mr. Speaker? Maybe Dalton McGuinty as the Ethics Commissioner or Kathleen Wynne as the Lobbying Commissioner? I mean, what could possibly go wrong? The Prime Minister promised a new merit-based appointments process. Sadly, what we're getting is yet another broken promise with this Liberal patronage appointment. So will the Prime Minister restore some integrity to this place and cancel this appointment?
Hear, hear. Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, two official languages are at the heart of who we are as Canadians. Our government is firmly committed to a rigorous, open and merit-based process for public appointments. The Official Languages Commissioner is a very important role, one, of course, that we value, and we want to ensure that the recommended person is highly qualified. We will make sure that we make an announcement soon on this regard. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Party Human Resource Office has moved from Queen's Park to Parliament Hill, and just as it is under Kathleen Wynne, every federal appointment should come with the disclaimer, only the Liberals need apply, and moving expenses will be paid unless you're caught. Clearly, the Liberals are ignoring their election pledge of merit-based appointments, openness and transparency, with the Liberal Party cronyism continuing to be business as usual. So, Mr. Speaker, whose name will be called next from the Liberal donor Rolodex, and what's the going rate these days for a plum Liberal appointment?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
That we have put in place a new appointment process which supports open, transparent, and merit-based selection process. Under our new process, we have made 122 appointments, of which 60% are women, 13% are visible minorities, 10% are Indigenous, and all positions to apply are available online. We committed to a new, open, transparent, merit-based process where our boards, our commissions, our corporations can actually look like the diversity of our country. We will continue to do that good work, and I encourage all Canadians to apply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Barrie Innisfil.
Well, the Liberals' legislative agenda fizzles and their fundraising dries up. Guess who else is behind their work, Mr. Speaker? Ethics Commissioner Mary Dawson has told the Ethics Committee her office is struggling to complete their open investigation into the Prime Minister's taxpayer-funded Christmas vacation to Billionaire Island, and in fact, she may not complete it before the July 8th deadline. And so since the clock is ticking, and there hasn't been any consultation with this House on who will replace Mrs. Dawson, like a wolf looking after a herd of sheep, Is it the Prime Minister's intent to approve himself as the ethics watchdog?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as has been said time and time again, we will always work with the Ethics Commissioner to ensure that we are responding to all questions that she will have. When it comes to the appointment process, we have introduced a new open, transparent, merit-based appointment process. All opportunities to apply are available online. I encourage all Canadians to apply because it is important that our corporations, our boards, reflect Canada's diversity, something we are very proud of. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, Vancouver is on pace to reach 400 overdose deaths in 2017, double last year's number. In April, BC's first responders broke the record for overdose calls in a single day. Frontline workers feel traumatized, they don't have the resources they need, and Vancouver City Council is expressing anger and frustration. Yet, Budget 2017 failed to allocate a single dime for emergency funding. Will this government finally step up with the resources necessary to bring this crisis under control?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Member for his question. I would like to just correct a fact that he stated. I think he may have misread his notes. In fact, British Columbia is on track to have 1,400 deaths in 2017. This is a significant increase over last year, and we continue to see this overdose crisis spread across the country. I thank all members of this House for their urgent attention to this with the passage of Bill C-37, hopefully later today. We put $100 million into the Canadian Drugs and Substances Strategy in Budget 2017, $16 million in emergency funding to British Columbia and Alberta. We will make sure we put the resources behind this and that we act with the urgency it deserves.
The Honourable Member for Nanaimo Ladysmith.
Yesterday, Canadians celebrated Mother's Day and all the contributions mothers make to their families and to Canada. But what we can't celebrate is the lack of affordable childcare for Canadian families. Fees are more than $1,200 a month in Toronto, closer to $1,400 in Vancouver. Affordable childcare in Canada would be good for families, good for women rejoining the workforce, good for the economy. Is the government ready to do what's right for mothers and families and bring in national affordable childcare?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Social Development.
Very proud to address this issue, as is our budget of 2017. But before we do that, we should thank mothers and caregivers who serve as mothers right across this country for the extraordinary work they do, raising all of us and all of our kids in this country. Budget 2017 invests $7 billion over the next 10 years in partnership with provinces, territories, and Aboriginal groups to achieve just what this question asks, to move towards a national program that takes care of our kids in a more humane, more safe, and more regulated way. This government is committed to delivering on that campaign promise. Budget 2017 is the first step. We look forward to making more announcements.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Guildwood.
Mr. Speaker, as a former Parliamentary Secretary of the Minister of Defence, I was privileged to chair policy roundtables on behalf of the Minister. We engaged experts, stakeholders, and interested Canadians from coast to coast to coast. Discussions were lively, interesting, and thoughtful, a highlight of my time working with an incredible team at National Defence. Would the Minister update this House on the progress being made toward the launch of the defence policy for Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for his question. Also like to thank him for his considerable contributions to the Defence Policy Review. Mr. Speaker, our work on Canada's new defence policy is done. The next step is to share it with Canadians. But first, my colleague, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, is going to be saying more about Canada's foreign policy foundation. And then on June 7th, I will have the honour of releasing the new defence policy on behalf of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's unfortunately is waiting until June 7th because the Liberals have continued to dither and delay on releasing their defence policy review, which is already 6 months behind schedule. But instead of rolling out his beleaguered defence policy here, the Defence Minister went to Washington and showed it to the U.S. administration first. What was the point of delaying this announcement after the Liberals' so-called consultation with Canadians if in the end the Americans have a veto over our defence policy? Why are the Liberals showing the defence policy review to President Trump first before he shows Canadians?
Minister of Defence.
Mr. Speaker, our defense policy consultation, we consulted Canadians. We had actually over approximately 5,000 contributors online, over 20,000 submissions, 18,000 social media submissions, 7 full-day roundtable discussions, Mr. Speaker, over 95 experts from academia, industry, and military indigenous leaders. And of course, Mr. Speaker, we consulted our allies to be able to listen to their viewpoints because multilateralism is extremely important to Canada, Mr. Speaker. And I'll be very proud on June 7th to announce the defence policy on behalf of the Government of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Defence Policy Review was supposed to be made public last December. The Minister used significant resources, a firm and a consultants group in order to hold consultations across the country. But now we find out that President Trump will have the last word on our defence policy. Now the Minister of Defense and the Minister of Foreign Affairs are going to Washington to get the blessing of the Americans to have our defense policy approved. Why did the Americans have the last word?
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank thousands of Canadians and our allies and partners around the world and members of this House and the Senate who contributed to the defense policy review, Mr. Speaker. And I look forward to announcing this on June 7th to all Canadians on behalf of the Government of Canada. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, 2 Labrador chiefs are calling out their Liberal Member of Parliament for a very misleading housing announcement. She went there and she promised 40 new units, but it turns out that they're only going to get half of what was promised. So this is either an example of misleading or incompetence. Will she stand up and apologize to the 20 families who are going to be severely disappointed by the Parliamentary Secretary?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I did apologize on the weekend to Chief Hart and to Chief Newey. There was a misinterpretation of the numbers that was profiled in the budget, Madam Speaker, and we've been happy to work with both communities to invest millions of dollars over the last year in both infrastructure and housing, in roads, in water systems, in shelters, and all the other infrastructure that have been required, and we're going to continue to work with them to help them meet the demands in their communities.
Honourable Member for Kamloops, Thompson Caribou.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals consistently misinterpret, they don't calculate things properly, and they don't know how to explain things. They're leaving confusion in their midst, whether it's unable to explain what a nation-to-nation is, a missing and murdered inquiry going off the track. The file is a mess. What are they going to do to get things back on track and keep Indigenous communities, give them clarity that they deserve instead of the misleading information?
Honourable Minister of Indigenous and Northern Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, we're very proud of the record in the ability of us to implement all of the investments in Budget 2016, in us improving the relationship from adversary to a true partner in the way that we deal with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis partners as we go forward. We are proud to look forward to this new relationship based on the recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership, and I am proud to stand in this House with our record.
Member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, while Liberals claimed that softwood lumber is a top priority, they have failed to secure a new deal, and they've neglected to make a real plan to support forestry workers and communities. This week, hundreds of Quebec forestry workers will have their hours cut and their paychecks slashed. Instead of more empty words from this government, workers deserve action. Where are the loan guarantees? Where's the direct support? When will the Liberals stop watching from the sidelines and finally do something about this jobs crisis?
Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. We have been working across the Government of Canada, and during those months with our counterparts right across the country, to talk about these punitive duties that have been posed by the Department of Commerce in the United States. And we are determined with our provincial partners to look at both the short term to ease the burden that inevitably will fall upon workers who will be affected, by communities and by producers who will go through some hardship, and also the long term to diversify markets internationally and to help the industry in this transition. we are working hard for the workers, the communities, and the businesses.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Today, the softwood lumber conflict has all too real consequences for workers. Right now, as we speak, throughout Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean, plants in Jonquière, Dolbeau-Mistassini, Saint-Félicien, Girardville, Saint-Thomas, and others have slowed down considerably. 1,285 workers will lose hours, not to mention income, and we're not counting families living with this anxiety. This is due to the Liberal government's inaction. When will the government make decisions that are concrete and immediate and implement a loan guarantee program to defend our forestry jobs? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources. Forestry jobs are essential to our communities, to Canadian workers throughout the country. We are taking immediate action to help companies, workers, and local communities affected by the punitive and unfair tariffs. We will vigorously defend our industry and our workers following the decision made by the U.S. Department of Commerce.
St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, in opposing Wynn's Law, the Liberals have argued that presenting the criminal history of bail applicants will make bail hearings less efficient. The bail hearing of Constable Wynn's killer was very efficient, but it had fatal consequences. Why would the Liberals put so-called efficiency over ensuring that all evidence about the criminal history of bail applicants is before the courts so that what happened to Constable Wynn never happens again?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What happened to Constable Wynn is a tragedy. We support the objectives behind this bill to ensure with the principle that all relevant information needs to be presented at bail hearings. We have the utmost respect for the work of committees. The committee heard from a myriad of witnesses, and they presented evidence that, in fact, this bill could potentially decrease public safety. We are going to ensure that we work in a constructive and collaborative manner with the provinces and territories to look at bail reform within the guise of the comprehensive criminal justice reform.
Order. Order. Most members are able to sit through question period and hear things they don't like without reacting. Most members in all parties. So I would ask that others who have difficulty doing that try a little harder. Now, member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, opposing Wynn's Law and disrespecting victims, that's the Liberal record. Yeah. Wayne Pefferidge, whose son was brutally murdered, wrote to the minister last September to raise substantive issues around sentencing. 8 months later, aside from receiving an insulting email that the minister receives many emails, he has heard absolutely nothing from the minister. When is this minister going to finally start respecting victims instead of just ignoring them?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the opportunity to stand up and talk about the comprehensive review of the criminal justice system that we are undertaking, that I was mandated to do in my letter from the Prime Minister. That includes a comprehensive review of sentencing reforms that have taken place over the past 10 years and before that. We are moving forward to ensure effectiveness and efficiencies in the criminal justice system with the underlying objectives of ensuring respect for victims, public safety, and the reforms that we take are in compliance with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
The Honourable Member, order. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Nose Hill.
Mr. Speaker, the ruthless authoritarian rule of Nicolas Maduro has left Venezuela on the brink of economic and social collapse. The entire world should be gravely concerned about the rampant human rights violations and humanitarian crisis that is occurring there. Both Presidents Trump and Obama have instituted targeted sanctions against human rights abusers in Venezuela, and the EU Parliament is calling on the EU to do the same. So instead of talking points, I just want an answer to this question. Is the Prime Minister willing to institute targeted sanctions against Venezuelan human rights abusers?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the question because this government understands that the situation is rapidly deteriorating in Venezuela. That's why Canada has been strongly critical of the Venezuelan government at the OAS. at the Commission on Human Rights, through our public statements and in bilateral meetings. Our embassy in Caracas is supporting the work of Venezuelan NGOs and activists who are active on the human rights effort in Venezuela. We continue to call on the government of Venezuela to respect its international commitments to democracy and human rights, and will continue to work with partners in the region to achieve just that.
The Honourable Member for Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, tourists from all over the country and all over the world come to my riding in Saint Laurent, come to Montreal and Quebec, from the old port of Montreal with its European charm to a museum in my riding. There's so many things to do. The tourism industry supports over 1.7 million jobs throughout the country, including 7,000 in my riding. Could the Minister of Small Business and Tourism inform the House of initiatives put forth by the government to support tourism in Saint Laurent, in Quebec, and throughout Canada? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Saint Laurent for her question. Rural and urban communities throughout Canada have so much to share with the world. I've announced a new vision for tourism in Canada. Our pan-government approach will improve tourism marketing, access to Canada by air and land, and the development of different experiences such as Aboriginal tourism, LGBT tourism, culinary tourism, and so on. I invite everyone to find out more through our website about our new vision.
Mr. Speaker, apparently the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, and not Parliament, will be first to learn if the Minister of Transport will protect the rights of shippers. Farmers are nervous that the Minister's choice of venue is a foreshadowing that its changes will benefit the railways and leave farmers out in the cold. Grain farmers want long-term certainty, but these Liberals are more focused on optics than they are on governing. When will the rights of farmers become a priority for this minister?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Speaker, the rights of farmers have always been a priority with this government, and I look forward to going to the great city of Edmonton on Wednesday to talk about some very important issues which I am sure will be of great interest to them. Stand by for more details, and we'll see how that goes.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, last Thursday the Minister himself admitted what we already know, that trespassing on railways caused more danger than protected crossings. What did he do to date to make sure that there were protected crossings in certain places where people need them so badly? Absolutely nothing. Perhaps he doesn't have sufficient powers? My bill proposed to give him the necessary powers to ensure the mobility and safety of citizens across Canada. So why is he refusing to commit to supporting my bill? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, I must correct my colleague concerning our investment in railway safety. As you know, in 2016, we allocated $143 million to improve railway safety. I made an announcement last fall about $55 million, $20 million announced recently for 130 different projects that involve level crossings in order to improve safety for Canadians at our level crossings. We're quite proud of that.
Mr. Speaker, during the 2015 election, this government promised British Columbians that they would formalize a moratorium on crude oil tanker traffic through BC's northern coast to further protect sensitive areas. British Columbians were reassured by the fact that this commitment was reiterated in the Minister of Transport's mandate letter by the Prime Minister. Can the Minister please update British Columbians and all Canadians on the progress he and the government have made on this matter?
The Honourable Minister of Transport. Order.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member from Steveston, Richmond East for his excellent question. As you know, we made a promise that we would formalize an oil tanker ban for the north coast of British Columbia, and we're delivering on that promise. Last Friday, we tabled legislation that will mean that large oil tankers carrying crude oil and other persistent oils will not be able to unload or load in ports along the north coast of British Columbia. This is delivering on a promise that we made for the people of British Columbia.
Order. I have to ask the honourable members for Caribou Prince George and Calgary Signal Hill to try to restrain themselves when someone else has the floor. The honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
It's a badge of honor. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, companies like Miller Western in my riding will be subject to 20% tariff on all lumber exports to the United States. Truck drivers, skidder operators, mechanics, and millwrights in communities like Whitecourt, Peace River, Slave Lake, High Prairie, and Lacrete are worried about that their jobs are at risk. The Prime Minister's claimed that securing a new softwood lumber deal is a priority, yet 328 days ago, the Prime Minister promised he'd have a softwood lumber deal in 100 days. How many more days will forestry workers have to wait for this Prime Minister to get the job done?
Here, here.
Parliamentary Secretary for Canada-U.S. Relations.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind all watching that it was the previous Conservative government that allowed the agreement to expire. We disagree strongly with the U.S. Department of Commerce decision to impose an unfair and punitive duty. The accusations are baseless and unfounded. We continue to raise this important issue with the President, as the Prime Minister has done on every single occasion they've interacted. We're looking for a good deal, not just any deal, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Pierre Boucher, Les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, these past few weeks, terrible floods have affected thousands of families throughout Quebec. Imagine now these same floods, but a nuclear waste site upstream. That's the project being proposed by this government. 1 million cubic meters of radioactive waste in Chalk River with all the risks that involves for Quebecers. Does the Minister of the Environment agree with this nuclear waste facility on the shores of the Ottawa River? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
The safety of Canadians and the protection of the environment are top priorities in relation to all nuclear activities in Canada. The proposed near-surface disposal facility at the Chalk River site would house low and intermediate level materials to ensure their safe and long-term storage. The project is subject to review and licensing by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, Canada's independent regulator of the nuclear industry. I encourage all interested Canadians to share their views on the project through that process.
The honourable member for Repentigny. The Prime Minister himself acknowledged that with climate change, extreme climate events like the recent flooding in Quebec are likely to become more and more frequent. We were just told that the Nuclear Safety Commission will be considering this project, a nuclear waste disposal site near the Ottawa River. Talk about a bad idea. Radioactive waste, drinking water, and floods. Nasty cocktail. Will the government commit today to block this project, which represents a huge threat to all Quebecers? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
As I just said, the health and well-being of Canadians and the protection of the environment are our top priority. In relation to all nuclear activities in Canada, the proposed near-surface disposal facility at Chalk River would house low and intermediate level materials to ensure their safe and long-term storage. As members know, the project is subject to review and licensing by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. I encourage all interested Canadians to share their views on the project through that process.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, I think that if I was to tell my fellow citizens that the Conservatives will come up with solutions for softwood lumber, they wouldn't be satisfied. I think on May 15th, I can say that this situation is not satisfactory. The first victims have appeared in Quebec. About 1,300 forestry workers in Mistassini, Kenogami, Latuc, Bécomo, everywhere. These families are losing money, and we owe this to the 40 Liberal members. Couldn't the minister answer for the now, not for the future, and stop wasting time and make a commitment? The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
We are spending with our provincial counterparts, including from the province of Quebec, are not wasted hours, Mr. Speaker. This is the country working together to ensure that workers who are affected, communities who will be impacted, producers are under stress, will have the full attention of the Government of Canada and the Government of Quebec and all of the other provinces who are equally concerned to protect the workers in the forestry sector.
This will conclude question period for today. The honourable member for Grande Prairie Mackenzie is rising on a point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Earlier in question period, the infrastructure minister stated that the previous government had made no investments in infrastructure. I'd ask for unanimous consent to table a document in both official languages. That was produced by the minister's department. This document was produced for the BlackRock's Billionaire Summit, which states that in 2015, Canada had the largest investment in infrastructure in the OECD.
Does the honourable member have unanimous consent of the House to table the document? There is no unanimous consent. Tabling of documents.